From our new studio home inside the worldwide headquarters of the Big Play Studios on the shores of Lake Erie, just down the road from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Cleveland Browns Stadium, Huntington Bank Field. Welcome to Greeny Sports Cards Live, the world's very first multi-stream broadcast for the hobby industry. This is episode 125, presented by Big Play and the Big Play Collectibles Network. And what a monster show this is tonight. Green, of course, will take you around the country to his top collectibles shows coming up this weekend with stops in Dallas, New York, Anaheim, and here in Ohio. Our resident hobby insider, Joe Wysmierski, will bring the hobby news. And for our preview of the 46th Annual National Sports Collectors Convention, we will be joined by Brian Ludden, CEO of Ludex, who will help us navigate their interactive floor plan for the National. And then we will be joined by JBJ Promotions, producers of the National. The trio of Jimmy Ryan, Brian Coppola, and Joe Drylick sat down with Green and me earlier today for a rare exclusive interview, along with Shane Wynn, head of communications and marketing for the National. Since we've got a tight show tonight, we're going to keep it moving. And with that, I will welcome in the man himself, Steve Greenberg, a.k.a. Greeny, the namesake of Greeny Sports Cards Live, and my friend for multiple decades now. Greeny, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Happy to be here again on Tuesday night. It's still amazing that we're actually in a professional studio. I'm not in a bedroom or in the card show office in Twinsburg, but here at the Big Play Studio, working on something that we dreamed about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. We want to thank Big Play, the team at Big Play. We've got Ryan sitting in with us tonight. We've got Haley. We've got a host of teammates throughout the world supporting this endeavor. So if you're not familiar with Big Play or the Big Play Collectibles Network, follow us, like us, share us, all of that great stuff. Big Play is in multiple markets throughout, particularly the AFC North teams. We're based out of Cleveland and down in Columbus and Detroit and over in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So we're continuing to grow just as Greeny Sports Cards is continuing to grow. You've got a couple of shows coming up this weekend that you'll share coming up in Card Show Live, and just a packed show this evening, Greeny. So before we get going, though, we mentioned this last week. This is a collectible show. Sure. We've got two pretty spectacular pieces behind us on the wall here. We want to thank Andrew and Sienna out at Hall of Framers, Northeast Ohio's premier custom framing studio. Every frame is handcrafted. Every detail is the absolute best. And their team delivers the kind of work you only get from true professionals. If you want your collectibles framed the right way, visit Hall of Framers at hofcle.com or stop by their shop in downtown Berea, just up the road from Cleveland Browns headquarters. It's a multi-level shop, really cool stuff. You'll see some collectibles in there, as well as the world's best framers for our money.
It's great stuff. I use them for everything that I need framed. The walls at Greeny Sports Cards headquarters is all Hall of Framers.
Terrific. So keeping it moving down the road, let's get into hobby hits for this week. A couple of stories for you. Market momentum surges around the vintage icons. Multiple outlets have reported an uptick in vintage activity with Mantle, Robinson, Thorpe, and other historical figures tied to July's major events and Fanatics Fest anticipation. The trend is notable because it's category-wide, not tied to a single sale or auction. Beckett introduced a new, quote, Modern Express tier aimed at collectors submitting post-2018 cards with guaranteed faster turnaround and simplified pricing. This is part of Beckett's broader effort to streamline operations and regain market share in the modern card grading segment. eBay rolled out updated seller protection rules specifically for graded and authenticated cards over $250, including expanded coverage for item not received disputes, stronger safeguards against fraudulent returns, priority support for collectible sellers. This is the platform's most significant hobby-specific policy update of 2026. Fanatics quietly began beta testing a single collector identity system that works across Fanatics Live, Topps.com, and future marketplace integrations. The goal, one login, one profile, one purchase history, one loyalty system, a major infrastructure step toward a unified hobby ecosystem for Fanatics. And lastly, the National VIP and 5-day passes are all sold out. If you missed the opportunity to grab your VIP or your 5-day pass, single-day tickets are still available. Go to nsccshow.com to purchase. We've got more coming up on the National with Brian Ludden, CEO of Ludex, as well as the trio behind the production at the National, JBJ Productions, and Shane Wynn, the communications director. So before that, we've got more news to share with our resident hobby insider. He is the hobby's unofficial national treasure, the only man who can turn a base card greenie into a full-blown emotional documentary. Please welcome the desert-dwelling Sultan of Slabs, our very own headband, Joe Wysmierski.
Thank you for having me yet again. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you made it another week, as did we. Nobody pulled the plug yet on either one of us, so we're glad to have you. And did you hear what Jeremy said about the National? All the 5-day passes, all the VIP tickets are already sold out. I mean, what do you make of the hobby right now?
Well, first of all, I don't believe it because everyone that I see online says that the bubble's bursted or it's about to burst. So it's really hard for me to believe that any of that is true. So right now, I'm just going to say it might be speculation. So go online if you don't have your tickets. I mean, maybe just buy a 1-day to start and then see how it goes. If there still is some people there at the convention center. I went for the first time last year, as you guys know, and I would say it looked pretty alive during a lull, right, in the hobby. We had the COVID hangover still, as people were calling it. Which, I mean, that's all tongue in cheek. It's crazy. Everyone's interested. You know, this weekend alone, you have Fanatics Fest going on. You also have the West Coast Card Show going on. So there's card shows happening all across the country. It's not slowing down. It's only building momentum, and the snowball just keeps turning and turning and turning.
Yeah, the big show coming up too as well. Yeah, it's amazing. And what about the card shops? What is the vibe in the card shops this week?
It never stops. I mean, there's a constant flow of traffic coming in, and again, we always talk about, like, you think that you've seen a lot or you've seen most of the things out there. It just continues to show you new things that are available in the hobby or cards that we may have forgotten about. And then when you go and you comp these cards out, then you just see that they've shot up through the moon, or to the moon, excuse me. One of the points that Jeremy was making about, like, the increase in vintage, you know, I would say I haven't seen as much vintage coming in, but what people maybe perceive as vintage is the reprint cards of, like, Mantle and that kind of stuff. I've seen an uptick of that, like, oh, I've got a couple of Mantles I'm bringing in from Topps or Don Russ. And so, which, you know, that bursts a few bubbles, because those still, although they are cool, they just don't carry the value of the true older vintage cards.
All right. I get it. You're right. But I could tell you, high grade vintage is at an all-time high, and those cards still are breaking record numbers. You know, the run-of-the-mill vintage is going to be what it is, and I know people still build sets, and they do that. But as we're seeing with the GOAT conversation of, you know, the Brady's, the LeBrons, you still have to put the Mantles, the Roots, and all those. And in high grade, those cards are selling at record numbers.
Yeah, and it's just two different types of collectors, right? So even though there are youngsters out there that think that the 90s are considered vintage because it was before they were born, you know, we look at it two different ways, but definitely vintage cards are surging still. And, you know, this gets me really fired up because it comes down to, yes, the grade could be one thing, but ultimately it's the eye appeal of the card and in the holder, which really drives the value of that. But right now with the modern stuff, I mean, the Brady's, the LeBrons, the Kobe's, all that kind of stuff. My question to you, Steve, is, I know you dabble in a lot of these different GOATs and modern GOATs. How do you respond when you're selling cards on eBay, Steve, and you have like a PSA 10 Kobe 20 or 2008 card, right? Panini numbered to 250, and you have it listed for 400, and someone says, well, I'll give you 200. The last comp was last year for 200, and I'll pay you the full comp. How do you respond?
On eBay, I don't respond.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy. It's in person, it's a little different. And I get it. I understand. We live in a comp world, but we also live in a different world than we did just 30 seconds ago, right?
Pancake
That's correct.
eating.
And you know, we heard that saying before in a movie, but you know, comps are for cards that are no longer available. This
Thank
card
you.
is available. If you want to pay this price, fine. Now I get it. On cards that you can find every day, a Silver Prism of Jaden Daniels, fine. Happy to play the comp game. On a card that you have one sale in the last year, it's not as easy to do that. And I don't think there's a reason to sell the card at the same price it was a year ago, 6 months ago, even a month ago. Like right now, I have some Tom Brady Bowman rookies. I have some LeBron Topps Chrome rookies, and every day those cards are hitting higher and higher. There's no reason to sell it at yesterday's price.
And Steve, I think that's why it's really important. I wanted to ask that question to you because so people know, the collectors that are out there, you can be a flipper, you can be a buyer, you can be a seller, you can be whatever you want within the hobby. But one thing that you need to really be is patient, right? At the end of the day, if you allow yourself to be patient, you can really reap the benefits of the hobby financially, but also you can enjoy that card just a little bit longer, Steve.
But at a point in time, you do have to sell. If that's the profession you're in, which I am in, I have to find the right time to sell that card and not look back. And if it's a little less than what it sells for a month from now, so be it.
That's fair.
Joe, I have a question for you. You mentioned vintage. So we are within walking distance of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here in Cleveland. We have a classic rock station here, WNCX, that is celebrating its 40th anniversary. Classic rock is there's by definition 25 years of an artist being out is defined as classic rock. What is the barometer in the hobby? What's considered vintage? Is this a moving target? And at what point does something from the 90s, the comparative rock and roll thing is Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Pearl Jam are now considered classic rock. So what happens in the hobby for the vintage market?
I really think it's I mean, that's so hard, Jeremy, because really 90s should be considered like modern vintage. I guess you could make a subcategory for it, but
I think you just invented one.
What?
I think you just invented one.
I mean, it really could be, but really, like in the shop, we're looking at anything that's prior to 1980 is really what we think of as like vintage. And some guys that's even stretching. They're looking 60s and 50s and 40s, that kind of stuff is true vintage. But realistically, I like how they categorize that anything 25 years plus, which is pretty insane because I mean, Snoop Dogg is technically vintage, right? You know?
Technically, yeah.
Sure. So with everything that's going on this weekend and the show the week after, what do we expect to come 3-4 weeks from now?
Well, the big show definitely slows down a lot of the grading and the PSA that's going to happen. So right now, I know that there have been quite a few people that have come into the shop. Even myself and Chris, we've seen grades start to come back from PSA, but you're going to see a little slowdown. You're going to see some slowdown, maybe on a few eBay pages. You might see a slowdown for the next, I would say, 10 to 12 days. But what you can anticipate that will happen are those people that do have regrets for items that they may have seen at these big shows, and then they're kicking themselves and they're looking online and they're trying to find what they missed out on. So you're going to have some of those FOMO buys, which are going to be great. And then the other thing that you're going to see continuously for the next week, I would say, with all of these shows, you will see people starting to buy soccer cards at the peak of what the actual value is. And someone had a post online talking about, getting the most money possible out of, your soccer cards if they're not something you're willing to hold on to right now. Now's the time to shoot your shot and put your price to the moon and see what you're willing to accept, because the stuff is going to move, especially for the show that's in New York with the finale this this upcoming weekend. So expect to see a ton of soccer stuff and a ton of coverage of soccer items online too.
Yeah, we're already seeing a ton of it. I mean, I was at a show last week, and people were asking for Messi and the cards like that. I know that Haaland was just taken down, but how about Yamal, right? Like he's another one
Yeah.
that's advancing. You and I both have some wild card, one of a kind cards from last year, the art cards that I'm going to bring those to the National this year, especially.
I was with Joe when he picked his up. That was pretty cool.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Joe took me over, and I purchased a few, and I have some that are going to come to the National. I'm rooting for Yamal. I'm also rooting for Messi because I have some Messi cards as well
Yeah.
that I'd like to sell. But I think we're seeing that uptick already, and it will be even more after next week.
You're also going to see this next coming week too, with Fanatics Fest going on. They have, I believe it's 3 exclusive SKUs that will be dropping this week. I believe it's a 2 baseball and maybe a wrestling that are going to be exclusive to Fanatics Fest. So they had like the Travis Scott Cactus Jack stuff that came out last year at Fanatics Fest. So you'll see a lot of people going crazy if they get the EQL or they win those boxes. So that's going to create a lot of desire again in the marketplace. And also when they do have the WWE people that like the superstars that show up and do autographs and all that signing, that shows a huge uptick in wrestling cards that do sell. So it should be a fun weekend on both sides of the United States, the West Coast Card Show. Then you have Fanatics Fest. And then, you know, a little less than 10 days later, you have the big show in Chicago. So it's definitely an exciting time to be a card show guy.
I want to stay on Fanatics Fest here for a second. A couple years ago, Kevin Durant was on stage and looked down at his phone and saw that he was traded, right, to whichever team he's even on now. I can't keep track of
The
Kevin
Rockets.
Durant's teams. The Rockets. So LeBron James is scheduled to appear twice at Fanatics Fest. He's going to have 2 of his podcasts on there. Jeremy, I'm going to bring you on. What are the chances that LeBron announces his decision at Fanatics Fest?
Wow, it's been a topic of conversation, certainly here in Cleveland on our sports talk station. There's a couple schools of thought that either, as LeBron's camp, you announce this ahead of time so you don't have to go to Fanatics and answer all the questions. Then you can just go up on stage and do your podcast and do all that. But boy, how invigorating would that be to be on stage? If he's doing 2, I can see a scenario where he announces at the first one, and then the second one is talking about it. The one concern I do have, though, is if he's not choosing New York and he's in New York, you know, we know how friendly New Yorkers can be. So maybe he doesn't want to put himself in that situation.
I think they already know New York is not his decision. But LeBron's had 3 decisions already. He's made 1 on TV. He's made 1 through the Sports Illustrated platform, and he's made 1 with just a press release. Now he has his own production company, which is running these podcasts, right? I think maybe he puts it on there.
I think he does. And,
Joe?
You know, just real quick to LeBron, if you are listening to our show, have you ever seen a Kyle hug a sunset? It's beautiful. So
I'm going to tell you, Steve, I think your comment of saying, you know, he's not going to New York or I don't know. I think the stars align pretty perfectly for them to make that announcement in New York City.
Maybe. I mean, he's always said Madison Square Garden is the mecca of basketball, and he'd love to play there.
Yeah, well,
maybe.
If anything, and this is a hot take, and I could, you know, do what you want with it, but if they do that's absolutely terrible. I would not want that a part of his legacy, especially coming off the heels of a world championship, to bring him in there like that. I think that just really washes them away and washes them out. So I think that would hurt the Knicks and the team and the core that they have there currently. So I hope he decides to go to Cleveland. That would tie a bow on a beautiful career and would go out with a bang. But if he does go to New York, I think that takes a lot of the spotlight off of that core that really built a strong foundation there.
Yeah. Joe, thanks very much. We appreciate it. We hope he comes to Cleveland. We will we'll talk more next week. Maybe we'll have a decision by then. Last week, the interwebs kicked you off. I told everybody where to find you. Today, you can tell everybody where you can find Joe.
Thank you, guys. You can find us at 59th and Thunderbird in Glendale, Arizona, or at PHX Sports Cards on Instagram. Check us out. Enjoy. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Greeny, this is a live show. We've told people anything can happen, coming and going. We expected Brian Ludden, the CEO of Ludex, to join us tonight to talk about the interactive map at the National. Unfortunately, he has a family emergency to attend to, so Brian sends his apologies. Hopefully, we can get on possibly next week before the National. I would recommend go to nsccshow.com and check out the Ludex interactive map. It's imperative. If you are attending the National, you've got to get a lay of the land before that. So it is a cool feature, Greeny. Maybe if there's time, we'll show it. But
it really is. Family. It really is. I use it. Here it is right up here, or we can show it later. Either way, it is a very useful tool. You can search by booth number. You can search by vendor name. You can type anything in, and it will pop up a couple different scenarios, and then you can click on which corporate booth or which vendor that you are looking for right on their map. And I see we're pulling one up right now, and you can find exactly where people are located. Not only the vendors, the corporates, and all of the like. So really cool thing that Ludex has put together. They've done this for a couple years now. And what's real cool is the vendors, we got the opportunity to type in what we sell. So I have modern cards. So I was able to put that into our description. So you can search for modern, you can search for vintage. If people put insert cards in there, which I put in mine, you can search that. So very terrific tool. They have the app. It's on the Nationals website. Get familiar with it before the show and even when you're at the show. And you can also put notes in there to remind you of where you saw things. So you can go back and hopefully purchase that card if you left it the first time.
Very good. We've got more coming up on the National Sports Collectors Convention with the trio themselves behind the show production for an exclusive interview. And Shane Wynn, the communications director, as well, joined us for that. But now, Greeny, it is time for one of my most favorite parts of the show. It's time for Card Show Live.
Yeah, welcome on into this edition of Card Show Live. We're going to take you around the country, preview some of the shows that we think that you might enjoy spending some time at. First, we're going to start off here in Cleveland. We have a couple shows here locally. The first one is our TC Greeny show, Saturday, July 18th. It is 100% TCG, Pokemon, One Piece, and the likes. 100 tables. It's at the Woodside Events Center in Broadview Heights, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday. So come check that out, the TC Greeny show this Saturday. Then on Sunday, we have another show that is in Twinsburg at the Glen Eagles Golf Course. Small little local community show. The entire city of Twinsburg and the surrounding cities, they come support this show. It's about 40 tables, but a little bit of a mixture of everything. They have a fantastic restaurant in there. They have big screen TVs, so you come and watch some of the games that are going to be on and check out all the cards. But pretty much split in half between sports and TCG. And then from there, get on an airplane and you can fly out to the West Coast Card Show, July 16th through 19th. The Anaheim Convention Center, 1,000+ tables, 220,000 square feet. What a fantastic event put on there by their team. The West Coast Card Show. It is the experience, the epicenter of trading cards and collectibles. So check that out. The West Coast Card Show, July 16th through the 19th. Also, that same weekend, July 16th through 19th, you can check out the Dallas Card Show. And, we've talked about that several times on this show. An absolute terrific, huge, amazing show. A trade night fit for everybody. And, some people say that it's a trade night with a card show. That's how popular their trade night is. So the Dallas Card Show is the 16th through the 19th at Allen, Texas, at the Marriott Convention Center. And then the show that we've been previewing earlier is also this weekend, Fanatics Fest. You've heard about it, July 16th through the 19th, the Javits Center. All the stars are going to be there. Totally different than what you find at other shows. This is like a huge sports con, right? There is hundreds of celebrity guests. And there's hundreds of tables. So it's also coming through the World Cup finals. We talked earlier, LeBron is going to be there. Tom Brady's going to be there. Many others I expect to see. I know ESPN has done First Take from there the last couple of years. So if you're anywhere in that vicinity, check out the Javits Center for Fanatics Fest. And again, any shows in your area, go check them out, support the shows, keep the hobby alive, and we will see you next week on Card Show Live.
Great stuff, Greeny. Keeping with the theme of Card Show Live, we were honored and are honored to spotlight the team behind the biggest and most influential event in the hobby, the National Sports Collectors Convention. Joining us for a rare trio interview are the leaders of JBJ Promotions, the producers responsible for bringing the National to life each year, Jim Ryan, Brian Coppola, and Joe Drylich. Also with us is Shane Wynn, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications. Together, this group shapes the experience for collectors, dealers, corporate partners, and hobby fans from around the world. We sat down with the team earlier today for an in-depth conversation about the show, its future, and what's ahead for the National.
The National brings together collectors, dealers, breakers, grading companies, and corporate partners. There are stakeholders all over this event. What is your approach to ensure that those groups all feel represented at an event of this magnitude?
To put on the best show possible, typically working on every aspect of the show, delivering the best pieces that they can to bring everybody together and have a very successful event.
It's amazing that we're in our 46th year and we're talking about all the different stakeholders. There's something there that people will see, and there's things that people won't see. And Jimmy, I'll ask you this. Security is a big deal at shows now. And we know that there's a lot of presence with security on the floor. But can you tell us a little bit about what the National does to keep not only the vendors secure, but the customers that are coming to the show?
So we have increased our security budget by over twofold from last year. Last year, we had a pretty good run when there was not a lot of issues on the floor. Based on our good security team that we have our in-house team that we bring out from our own regional shows that we ran, Joe shows and Brian and our show. Then we also have the local help that's there. We have a SWAT team that's SWAT presence there. We have local police there. We have dogs there. We do all we can to try to make the room as secure as possible for customers and dealers and corporates and everybody that's involved in the show.
The building is also equipped with a really high-tech camera system, which we also accent and add to. But the Rosemont facility is very well equipped, 24-hour surveillance. We've been in the camera room there too, which is built in, which is fantastic. We've had to use it very limitedly, which is nice. But as Jim said, the presence, the physical presence of officers you'll see in plain clothes, in full uniform, in SWAT gear, is really amplified.
Undercover.
Yep, plain clothes too throughout the building.
I've noticed in years past too, since you guys have started, there's actual drones, which I know is capturing content, but also used for security, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't use it in the Rosemont building, but we did use it in the Cleveland building. But yeah, absolutely. If you do see drones, which they may be outside the building as well, a lot of that is for security surveillance as well.
Joe, the dealers are the backbone, the true foundation of the show. What's the most important thing that you focus on to support them and keep the experience strong?
Not overwhelming the show with activations, right? The National's about the cards, and Jimmy, Brian, and myself have that philosophy in mind as well. We want it to be a time where collectors can come and spend the vast majority of their time on the floor with the dealers, going through binders of cards, looking through boxes, treasure hunting, but at the same time, we do want to add some elements of interest for maybe some people that are there along for the ride. Maybe there's an entire family there where there's one or two collectors in that family, and then there's some outside activities to do, which we can get into in a little while. But primarily, to answer directly to your question, we want to keep the customers engaged with the dealers as much as possible. So we try not to overwhelm the show floor with too many bells and whistles.
Yeah, which has been terrific over the last couple of years, and the show has really expanded, since I've started doing this years ago. Brian, talk about how this is like a year-long process, right? We have so many stakeholders, as Jeremy talked about, the vendors and corporate. Talk about like the year-long process of getting everything together for this entire week.
Well, I mean, we all have various responsibilities, and it starts immediately after the show ends. You have to, resolve last year's business being 2026 and then fire for 2027. So sales start over again, corporate booths, technology is obviously an always ever-changing platform. Re-register all your vendors again, implement your new ideas, marketing. It's just every line of service just needs to be revisited because it's a new cycle. Probably the easiest way to say it.
Brian, tell them how many items are on your 2027 checklist already. Brian's our checklist keeper, so that'll be a good one to let you know, to magnify in on what we're talking about. How many are we at, Brian?
Yeah, we're at like 55 so far, and we haven't even gotten to the show yet. So every time that we have a group call and somebody says a bright idea, I just mark it down so that when we come back, offline, all of a sudden, we have a whole new book of business for next year. But there's just, you guys know how great the show and how big it is, and there's just so many details. And if you have a passion for getting it right and delivering the very, very best product that you can to all parties, you're going to take the time to to do these things, and it takes all year long to get it all right.
Yeah, one of the things that we pride ourselves on, sorry guys, is that Jimmy, Brian, myself are very accessible. We're out on the floor pretty much the entire show. We're walking the floor, engaging with dealers, engaging with our corporate partners, engaging with the TriStar Pavilion, the live streaming pavilion. We want to know, and we want the feedback as it's happening. Our job is part firefighter as well, to handle issues on the spot. But we put ourselves out there in the forefront to make sure that people know that they can just grab us and let us know what's happening. And then a lot of times, we drop everything, that we've had situations that we can get into with, VIP pass pickups. And, we can cover that in this as well, where Jimmy and I dropped everything that we were doing and handled the situation because, people weren't happy that they weren't getting into the show fast enough. And we take that stuff very seriously. We don't delegate that out. You'll see Jim, Brian, and I roll up our sleeves and we'll be in line, handing out badges, talking to people, letting people know, we're on it. And I think that that's super important in an event of that size to know that the finger's on the pulse and that we're not just sitting back in a room drinking coffee, waiting for the Sunday to come. We very much care about each day. So much so that we have engagements after the show that, Jimmy, Brian, and myself will get back in a golf cart and drive the floor at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Like, these are some of the things that are happening. We want to make sure the doors are closed, that the security's at their proper posts. Like, I don't know if calling us perfectionists is the right word, but we really deeply care about the show and the quality of the show.
You know what, Joe? It's important to point out is that, we all have dealer backgrounds, for 30 plus years of being in shows. We have hundreds of personal friends and associates that, that are our peers. And it's very important to us, obviously, that they're very successful. And those relationships they're still intact, whether we're behind the table or whether we're running the national. So their success is very important to us also.
That's a a terrific point. I want to stay in that space a little bit for all three of you. Shane Wynn is with us as well, Director of Communications for the National Sports Collectors Convention coming up here, the 46th annual in Rosemont, Illinois, here at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. But I do want to ask you, and we'll start with Jimmy, playing off of what Brian said, how do you balance tradition and innovation when deciding what the National should look like each year? Brian has a list of 55 points and growing. How do you strike that balance between the stakeholders of the dealers and innovating?
We just make sure that any new project we take on, that when we do, we vet it between ourselves and also our board members sometimes to vet it, see if it's going to be advantageous to the show and improvement for the show. That's how we work on our project list.
Shane, I'm going to ask you this, speaking of project lists. I know that there's some youth initiatives that are coming into the fray the last couple of years. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on to help bring more of the youth into the hobby?
Yeah, so this is year 2 of us running what we call the Youth Collector Clubs initiative, and that started last year about this time with a partnership locally here with Curtis Granderson's organization, the Chicago Baseball and Educational Academy. They've been a really great partner to us, and we're continuing that work this year. We've done a few dealer activations. We've done an activation at a regional show up in White Plains. Next Monday, the 20th, we are hosting a group of 40 Chicago Public School kids that are in mid-teens through Curtis's organization. We're going to be at Curtis Granderson Stadium at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Samuel Evans, who many of you will recognize as a content creator and a partner to the National, he is an educator, and he's developed an entire curriculum that uses sports card trading kind of as a proxy for teaching kids life skills. So like everything from being able to negotiate with an adult to understanding card trading in the same way that you would think about trading stocks and bonds, things like that. So we're going to be doing a lesson there at Curtis Granderson Stadium, and then those same kids are coming on Friday of the show, and we're going to do a second lesson where we're going to take them out in the wild in groups to do another lesson on card valuation. So, you know, one of the important things the National is focusing on is helping new, young kids get interested in the hobby in a meaningful way, right? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But, you know, if you've been to the National, you can't miss the kids walking the show floor with their cases and their cards, and like they're negotiating like pros. They're sitting in the hallways and they're trading with each other. They're up at trade nights doing the same thing. That's really important to us, that we continue to reinvest in the hobby and showcase it for younger generations. So we're pretty thrilled about the Youth Collector Clubs initiative now being in its second year.
And the screaming now. There's a lot more screaming on the show floor than a few years ago with the kids. Shane, I want to stick with you for a minute and rebound back the other way because we're talking about what's different and new. From a marketing communication standpoint, what's the biggest evolution that you have seen how fans engage with the National, and how has that shaped your marketing strategy this year?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the question you asked earlier to the guys about, you know, this is a year-long thing now. You know, it's not just an event that happens, you know, over the majority of a week once a year. And so from a marketing communication standpoint, you know, we've really spent a lot of time in the last several years talking about what does that mean from a communication standpoint. How do we present the National as something, you know, a brand that is more than just a week, long, and that's had a big implication on how we treat our social media. For example, it's had a big impact on how we show up and where we show up and when. So, for example, this year, for the first time ever, we went to the Super Bowl, and that's not something that the National has really ever done before. But the reason we did that is because we realized, number one, we need to be showing up 365 days a year, but also we need to be in culturally relevant moments that are directly related to the sport. So, for example, at the Super Bowl, we partnered with AJ Dillon, who's an NFL running back, now with Carolina Panthers. And AJ is a huge collector himself. He's got a channel called Dylan's Deals, where he's out there constantly talking about deals that he's doing. We went to the Super Bowl with him and did a walk on Radio Row, where he's ripping packs with media, talking about the National, talking about the joy of card collecting and all of that. We spent some time at WrestleMania this year with our partner Jeff Rosenberg, who is fantastic. Who is really the face of TriStar, runs the Autograph Pavilion. So it really, I think a lot of the innovation lately has been around this idea that the National needs to be present 365 days a year in a relevant and an authentic way. That's had a big impact on the marketing.
Last year, you guys decided to open up the upstairs. What are people expected to see there? I've heard something about an international section, so take us through that a little bit.
Last year, we were able to open up Hall G, which is the escalator right in the main entrance. If you go straight up the escalator, you go into Hall G, and we were able to add in 75 vendor tables, standard 8-foot tables, for a variety of reasons. We wanted to also make sure that the National could handle any type of dealer. Like, you don't have to be a traditional dealer booth at the National is 10 feet by 15 feet, and it comes with 3 tables. It's 150 square feet. May not sound like a lot of space, but in today's market with modern cards, a lot of the dealers and vendors don't necessarily have a massive amount of inventory. They tend to carry condensed versions of cards in a briefcase or two, and may not need a full booth space. So we lobbied to add in that element of, meaning an 8-foot dealer table, and it also accomplished 2 things. We have an extensive waiting list at the National for vendors that would like to set up at the National. So we were able to pull 75 vendors that were on the waiting list for multiple years into the space. It was wildly successful, so much so that we were given the opportunity to expand on that. So that space has now become, I believe, over 150 tables of 8-foot tables. And then we've also added in some corporate partners into that space. I believe we have 14 corporate partners upstairs, about 10,000 square feet of exhibit space for corporates, which is on the perimeter. So it's really just become, if you walked into Hall G, you would almost think it was its own card show. It's become that much of a size. We've also moved the Mike Burkus stage upstairs and enhanced that. And we also have a special activation that I don't know. I'll let Shane, dive into kind of what he's been working on with Brian and Jim. But we have something that we really feel is a cool tribute to our industry and our space. But yeah, we're really excited about it. The international piece is going to be really fantastic. I mean, I'm going to read from a list here, but I know we've got the UK, Germany, Croatia, Hungary, China, Japan, Hong Kong, France, Italy, all represented. And I know Poland, I did see that one too. There's a big F1 presence, a big soccer presence. There's some Pokemon and TCG. So the National is really listening to the hobby and incorporating what's happening at regional shows all over the country as well. And we do it with open arms. We embrace all of our international neighbors, and we want them to come in and enjoy the space and enjoy the show. So I'll let Shane jump in and continue on about the activation that we're excited about as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it for a second. So, Joe said it right. Like Hall G last year was a bit of an experiment. Hall G this year is a full-blown experience in many regards. New dealers, that haven't been able to set up at the National in previous years. I think 50 tables we've got for the International Pavilion area all together with some really important dealers from Europe and Asia who are giants out there and have been dying to be a part of the National for a long time, and we've finally been able to make that possible, which is exciting. You know, Joe alluded to the other corporate activation areas that are upstairs now. So like some of our big partners like eBay, for instance, they're not isolated now only to be in you know, in the on the main floor, but they can come up and do additional activations there, trade nights and all of that. But one thing that we're unveiling this year up there, it's really you know, I would say it's a labor of love in service of the hobby. You know, as the National, you know, we feel very responsible for the state of the hobby and nurturing dealers and making sure that it continues to thrive. And one of the things that's important is people understanding the history of card collecting. You know, I don't think anybody's really taken a huge stab in an environment of this size and helping people who may be casual hobbyists, right? And maybe they're young and they just got into it recently or from their mothers or their fathers, but may not know the history of sports card collecting. And so we are constructing what I would call a museum exhibition on the evolution of sports card collecting that starts in the 1890s and works its way through present day. We weave in the history of the National, right? So starting in 1980, when Mike Burkus, who was the namesake of the stage, giant in the industry, and two other guys helped start the first National. So you get a little bit of the history of the National as well. And then there's some actual three-dimensional interactive pieces at the end with some artifacts and memorabilia that we've collected over the years that you know, sort of extend that history lesson, if you will. So we think it's going to be a pretty interesting location for people. It's a nice, you know, sidebar during your day when you're out on the floor trading to actually learn a thing or two about where these cards that you're trading actually began and why.
I love that. I've said before, the National feels like the world's largest pop-up museum of sports memorabilia. It's there for 5 days, then it goes away. And now you've added a historical component to it. So I take for granted sometimes the nuanced perspective of what it takes to bring the National to a city. It's going to be in Rosemont this year and again next year. For those that don't understand or don't know, they may say, why doesn't the National come to Las Vegas or Orlando or Poughkeepsie? Give people a little bit of perspective on all the nuance that goes into making that type of decision.
So we call it site selection process. It's basically you go out, you contact all the big convention centers in the country, and we have criteria that are as follows: are you big enough? Got it. We have to be 600,000 or 700,000 square feet of contiguous space. Hotels, close airports, date availability. Because the National runs at a certain couple of weeks window there in the end of July, beginning of August, sometimes it's hard to get the dates. And also, when you find a good facility, a lot of times good facility has run over shows in it, repeating shows in it, just like we are in Chicago. We repeat there every year or every other year. You go to another convention center and they're going to say, well, we have the auto show here. It comes back every year. Sorry, we can't get you in those dates. There's a lot that goes into the selection process. I think we started out 2 years ago with about 32 sites, and we got it down to 3 or 4 sites where the show could actually fit into and actually work for us. That's how we do it. It's just an analysis and contacting the sites in the cities.
Yeah, it's a piece of it that's happened and become very relevant in the last 6 years or so is that, you know, the National was a nice size vessel, ship. Think of boats, and now it's a gigantic oil tanker, right? Mm-hmm. To turn this thing and to move this thing, we don't fit in most facilities any longer. You know, people have asked us about cities like Baltimore that, you know, there was successful convention center. You know, Baltimore's 375,000 square feet. We couldn't fit half the show in it any longer. So that piece of it is also, where we had 40 or 50 selections to choose from 7 or 8 years ago, we really have about 20 viable options, maybe 25. And as Jim touched on, for various reasons, a lot of those really nice facilities have repeat customers that come every year or multiple times a year. And when you say, hey, we want to come do a show and we don't know if or when we'll be back, a lot of times nobody's home.
It's really hard to move a show this size. It only fits in so many places. And when everybody says, how come we can't go back to previous locations? Like, as Joe stated, we just don't fit anymore. We're twice the size.
Yeah, there's a reason why Comic-Con sits in California, sits in San Diego. They nestled their home down there. Yep. And, we're not saying that we're not going to move, just saying there's a reason why they do it that way. But we love, the fact of moving around the country is fantastic because you can onboard new customers. And one of the reasons that we're excited about Detroit is we're going to have the correlation with Canada and, be able to pull in new collectors through there and then move into another old rustic city. I like to use the term rustic because obviously baseball's been there, 100 years. And it just creates, a plethora of different, new opportunities for our existing dealer base to, work from.
It's a great building too. The Huntington Place is a really good for what we do. You kind of know it, right? You walk in there, and Jim, Brian, and myself looked at each other, and we were like, "Man, this is a good one." Like you just know. You just walk in, and you know what your needs are. Your different components that you have, your corporate space, your autograph pavilion, your trade nights, your meeting rooms, like all your necessities. And we walked in there and we were definitely really excited. So, we're definitely, like Jim, Brian said as well, we're excited about the new city. Detroit is a great story. If anybody follows the revitalization of what's happening in Detroit, we got taken aback by that as well. It's a lot of homers, they're from there. They want to see the city rebuild. So it's really exciting. There's a brand new JW Marriott that's in full construction. We were just out there a few weeks ago, right, guys? That'll be done by next year. They were having not an F1 race, but they were having an F1 type of a race right in downtown. And, they're bringing in massive amounts of people. So we're definitely excited about, we love Chicago. Chicago's a great fit too, but we're excited about 2028 already.
We know you guys have worked tirelessly, countless hours over the last year, but you guys have been vendors before. You've been collectors. Do you ever get a chance to take like 15 or 20 minutes and just enjoy the show for what it is? Jimmy, I'll ask you first.
Well, I bought a card back in Cleveland, and everybody will get a kick out of this. I went by one of my friends. He had a card out there, and I said, I'd like to get that card from you. I said, I'll come back later on. I'll pick it up from you. Well, a year passed, and I finally picked up the card last year in Chicago, and Joe actually filmed it. It was pretty funny. So, yes, we get our 5 minutes on the floor. But then you busy. You don't get a chance to go back, and that's it. So it took us a year to commence one deal from Cleveland to Chicago. So it was funny. It was a Babe Ruth Butterfinger card. That's what it was. Pretty cool, but it took a year to commence it.
We'll give JD the time. Yeah, we'll give JD Heckenthorn a shout out for holding on.
The funniest part of the story is that I said to him, it was like 3 months before last year's show. I said, JD, I owe you an apology. I came out last year and I forgot to pick that card up. He says, hold on a second. I still have my national box here from last year. I'm on the phone. He opens the box up. He goes, I got the card here. I said, you got to be kidding me. Bring it to Chicago. I'll pick it up in Chicago. Like I said, Joe sat there and filmed it. It was pretty funny.
That's terrific. What will define a successful 46th annual The National Sports Collectors Convention? Brian, we'll start with you.
Wow. It's just happiness, right? I don't know how else to say it. Coming off last year, I'll give you an example. We sit back and we're our own worst critics, and we beat ourselves to death. And if we walk away with a minimal amount of what we call internal errors, things that we might have missed on or just didn't see the full vision on, as long as that list is low, that's great. But more importantly, it's hearing the dealers, knowing the dealers are having a successful show, the corporates, the thank yous at the end of the day, and that's the real success.
I'll touch on the customer side. I mean, it's just watching the customers' faces and their happiness when they're leaving. A lot of times they'll stop and they'll talk to our staff and say, it's the best show I've ever been to. They had a great time. It's just hearing it back from the customers.
Yeah, I agree with both Jim and Brian there. You know, we really try to make this massive event feel like a mom and pop event, and that's why Jim, Brian, and myself and our staff are all accessible, and they're all knowledgeable, and you know, everybody is naturally friendly. So for us, that's what it's about. You know, it's about having the customers show up happy and leave even happier. And then also, you know, like I said, you know, we make ourselves available to problem solve. So we want everybody to have a really, really good time. And if they're not having a good time, we want to be able to fix it quickly for them, you know, and that's what our job is. So that, I think, you know, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, look, the social media is a great trailing indicator. Like we watch it very, very carefully in the 4 weeks after the show, because so many people that attend the show then talk about their experience at the show on social afterwards. And so, you know, success partly is going to be seen through the tonality of how people talk about their experiences at the show. So we pay very careful attention to that as well.
Well, guys, listen, we really appreciate your time. We know it's precious. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Greeny Sports Cards Live, and we will see you guys in Chicago.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds good, guys.
The national.
Our sincere thanks to Jimmy Ryan, Brian Coppola, and Joe Drylick, along with Shane Wynn, for joining us to bring you a terrific interview and perspective on the National Sports Collectors Convention, the 46th annual Greeny. And what an amazing ride it's been. Can't wait for this year. My first national was in 2000 in Anaheim, and about 16 or 17 since in multiple cities. And Chicago, Rosemont is a terrific town for it. And
it really is. It really is. It's the center of the country, and I know we're going to some other places, and I love doing the traveling. Chicago's national is terrific, and people can fly in from all over the world, not just the country, and easy to drive into. We'll be set up there at Greeny Sports Cards, booth 1338. We'll have a great setup there. We'll have the whole content team. Jeremy will be out there, Haley, Drew, and Adam and John will be in the booth with us as well. We can't wait for this show. It is absolutely the mecca of ball cards for a week. We'll be with Mike, Vintage Cardboard Collectibles, and we have a great time. So hopefully you'll stop by our booth. You'll stop by over the 600 other booths, 900,000 square feet that are in Rosemont, the 2 floors. Use the Ludex app. Check out your favorite vendor, your favorite corporate booth, and we can't wait to see everybody here in about 10 days.
It's going to be in Rosemont this year and next, and then, as the guys said, over to Detroit, Michigan the following year. And so 46th Annual National Sports Collectors Convention in Rosemont. And Greeny, our thanks to you for being the namesake of Greeny Sports Cards.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Buying, selling, trading, making custom cards, content, shows. You've got 31 plus shows this year, over 40 on the calendar for next year. We'll have plenty to talk about and coming up. Real quick, this weekend you've got TC Greeny and
then the Glen Eagles golf course on Sunday. So yeah, 2 shows, one 100% TCG, and the other show is a mixture of both. So we'll get the sports in it as well. So do some buying and trading right up to the National.
Yeah. Make sure you get out to a show, if not one of Greeny's shows this weekend, and then definitely we'll see you at the National Sports Collectors Convention. Our thanks to BIGPLAY, BIGPLAY Studios, Ryan and Haley on the boards tonight. Our thanks to Jimmy Ryan, Joe Drylick, and Brian Coppola, along with Shane Wynn from JBJ Promotions. And, thanks to Joe Wysmierski for Hobby News. And
absolutely.
Greeny, thank you, and may the cards forever be in your favor.
Another great show, and we can't wait to be back. We will see you next time.